The courtroom is quiet, save for the soft rustle of papers. A tense atmosphere hangs in the air. The black defendant sits at the table, his hands folded, his expression a mix of anxiety and determination. His eyes flicker nervously from the judge to his lawyer, who sits beside him, ready to defend. Across the room stands the opposing lawyer, a man who exudes confidence, but not in the way you'd expect. There's a smugness to him, a sense of superiority in his stance. His sharp suit and clean-cut appearance only serve to emphasize the arrogance that radiates from him. He smirks as he walks toward the defendant, his eyes scanning the room with a casual disregard. The judge, an older woman, adjusts her glasses. She looks over the proceedings with a measured gaze, trying to maintain control. But you can tell that even she is aware of the simmering tension between the defendant and the opposing lawyer. The defendant's lawyer remains calm. He doesn't show much emotion, but you can see the frustration in his eyes. He knows what's coming. He knows the mockery that's about to unfold. And then, the moment arrives. The racist lawyer stands, his voice cutting through the silence, ready to make his move. The racist lawyer stands tall, his gaze fixed on the defendant. He's ready for his moment, and the room feels like it's holding its breath. He begins with a sarcastic smile, his voice dripping with condescension. "So," he starts, his eyes narrowing slightly, "let's see if we can understand you clearly today, shall we? Your accent is rather unique, isn't it?" He pauses, letting the words hang in the air, his tone dismissive. The defendant's hands tense on the table. He doesn't say anything, but you can see the slight twitch in his jaw as he tries to stay calm. The lawyer's eyes are fixed on him, waiting for some kind of reaction. But the defendant remains silent, trying to keep his composure. The lawyer leans forward slightly, as if he's about to reveal some great truth. "Tell me, how did you manage to get this far in life with an accent like that?" His voice is laced with mockery now, and the courtroom feels like it's closing in on the defendant. The defense lawyer glances at his client, his brow furrowed. He's aware of the subtle but cruel intent behind the lawyer's words, but he remains silent, waiting for the right moment to intervene. The racist lawyer smirks, clearly enjoying the discomfort he's causing. "You know," he continues, "it's hard to take someone seriously when they speak like that. It's almost charming, in a way. But how does anyone understand you?" He raises an eyebrow, expecting the defendant to respond. The defendant's eyes flicker toward his lawyer, but he doesn't speak. He knows what the lawyer is trying to do. The mockery is evident, and it's hard not to feel its sting. But he holds steady, refusing to give in to the lawyer's attempt to break him. The audience, though faceless, can feel the rising tension. The words are sharp, cutting through the air with purpose. But the defendant's silence speaks volumes. The defendant shifts in his seat, trying to focus on the words coming from the opposing lawyer. His heart races, but he refuses to let the mockery break him. He knows this is the moment when everything could unravel, but he also knows he cannot show weakness. His hands are still gripping the edge of the table, his knuckles white. He can feel the eyes of the room on him, some of them judging, others just curious. He feels the weight of it all, the pressure building with each passing second. But he stays quiet. His voice hasn't faltered once, not yet. He's not about to start now. The lawyer's words keep coming, sharp and cruel, like needles poking at his pride, but the defendant won't rise to it. He won't give this man the satisfaction of seeing him angry or hurt. He's been through worse in his life, and he knows how to survive this. He just has to remain composed. His lawyer, sitting beside him, glances at him once, then back at the judge. It's a subtle gesture, but it speaks volumes. He can feel the frustration rising too. But for now, he stays quiet, allowing his client to handle this in his own way. The racist lawyer takes another jab, his voice a little louder this time, as if to make sure the whole courtroom hears. "I wonder if anyone can even follow what you're saying. I mean, really, with an accent like that?" The defendant doesn't flinch. He doesn't let the lawyer see the effect his words are having. He just breathes in, steadying himself, determined not to let this man win. The silence between them grows heavier, and the defendant's resolve only strengthens. This fight isn't over yet. The courtroom is tense, the air thick with anticipation. The racist lawyer stands, looking satisfied with the discomfort he's caused. He crosses his arms and waits for the defendant to respond, but the defendant doesn't say a word. The silence stretches out, a heavy weight hanging over everyone. Then, the defense lawyer stands up, his voice cutting through the stillness. "Your Honor, we have a surprise witness who will speak to the matter at hand." The words seem simple enough, but they hold a weight that causes the room to stir. The judge raises an eyebrow. "A surprise witness?" she asks, her voice calm but curious. The defense lawyer nods, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Yes, Your Honor, we believe this witness will shed light on the situation in a way that will not only change the perception of the case, but also bring clarity to the defendant's character." The room buzzes with whispers. No one expected this. A surprise witness? It's rare for such a thing to happen in the middle of a trial, and it's clear that even the racist lawyer wasn't prepared for this twist. The defendant looks up, his eyes wide. He wasn't told about this witness in advance. It's a curveball, and his heart races as he tries to process it. A door at the back of the courtroom opens, and in walks a tall figure. The room falls silent as the surprise witness steps forward. The witness is a well-known figure in the community, someone respected by many. The moment the witness enters, there's a sense of authority that fills the room. They walk confidently to the stand, their eyes meeting those of the defendant. A calm reassurance fills the air, as if to say, "I've got this." The witness settles into the chair, adjusting the microphone in front of them. They take a deep breath, their eyes briefly meeting the defendant's before turning toward the judge. The courtroom falls into a heavy silence, all eyes on the new person who has entered the scene. The witness speaks calmly, their voice steady and sure. "Thank you, Your Honor," they begin. "I understand the seriousness of this case. But before we proceed further, I believe it's important to address something that's been said here today. Specifically, the behavior of opposing counsel." The racist lawyer shifts uncomfortably in his seat. He adjusts his tie and narrows his eyes at the witness, sensing that this won't go in his favor. The defendant's lawyer, however, gives a small nod, encouraging the witness to continue. The witness turns toward the racist lawyer, but their tone is respectful, professional even. "You see, I too have had to live with an accent. I grew up in a neighborhood where people spoke with a thick accent, one that many might find hard to understand, and because of that, I've been discriminated against. People questioned my intelligence. They mocked the way I spoke, just as Mr. Dame has been mocked today." The witness pauses, letting the weight of their words sink in. The defendant's lawyer looks over at his client, who now watches the witness intently. There's a spark in his eyes, a flicker of hope. The witness continues, their voice gaining strength. "What's important to understand here is that an accent does not determine one's worth. It doesn't reflect intelligence or character. It is simply a product of culture and upbringing. But, unfortunately, many people use accents as a tool to discriminate against others, to dehumanize them." The racist lawyer shifts again, clearly growing more uncomfortable. His smug demeanor is starting to crack. He clears his throat, but the witness doesn't back down. "Now," the witness says, "I noticed something about Mr. Racist Lawyer's name when he spoke to the defendant. His remarks weren't just about the accent. They were meant to belittle, to make the defendant seem less worthy of respect, of consideration. The fact is, he is using this man's accent to discredit him, and that's wrong. It's a clear case of bias, and it needs to be called out." The witness's words are direct and firm. The room is so quiet now, you could hear a pin drop. Even the judge is paying close attention, nodding as she takes in the witness's testimony. The defendant breathes a little easier. The tension in his chest begins to loosen as he realizes what's happening. The witness is speaking the truth, and every word feels like a small victory. The racist lawyer, on the other hand, visibly stiffens. His mouth is tight, his jaw clenched. The arrogance that once filled him has now been replaced by a quiet discomfort. The witness isn't done, though. You can try to twist the words, but what's been said here is clear. The way Mr. Defendant's name speaks has no bearing on his ability or his value as a person. It's a shame that such behavior still exists in this court. The room is silent, but the weight of the truth in the air is undeniable. The racist lawyer's face reddens as the witness finishes speaking. His confident posture has collapsed into defensiveness. He shifts in his seat, rubbing the back of his neck nervously, clearly flustered by the unexpected turn of events. He opens his mouth, attempting to regain control of the room, but his voice cracks slightly, betraying the discomfort he's feeling. "Well, that's a very touching story," he says with forced sarcasm. "But that doesn't change the facts of this case. We're not here to discuss personal biases, are we? We're here to discuss the credibility of the defendant." He tries to redirect the focus, but his tone lacks the sharpness it had before. The audience can sense his discomfort, his attempt to remain authoritative failing in the face of the witness's powerful words. The defendant's lawyer leans forward, sensing the opportunity to strike. "Your Honor, the opposing counsel's attempts to dismiss what's been said are nothing more than an effort to cover up the prejudice that has been exposed here today. It's clear that his remarks were not about the facts of the case, but rather an attempt to undermine my client based on his accent." The racist lawyer's eyes narrow. He doesn't like being cornered. "I would appreciate it if you would stay on topic," he snaps, his voice rising in frustration. But his attack falls flat. The room, once on edge, now seems to lean in the direction of the defense. Even the judge, who has been mostly silent up until this point, looks down at the lawyer with a stern gaze. She clears her throat and speaks calmly. "Counsel, I would remind you that personal attacks on the defendant are not relevant to the case at hand. We will proceed without further attempts to undermine his character." The racist lawyer's lips press together, his face a mixture of annoyance and disbelief. He knows he's lost the upper hand. His earlier arrogance is nowhere to be found, replaced by a mixture of frustration and uncertainty. He's no longer the dominant figure in the room. The power has shifted, and it's clear that he doesn't know how to get it back. The room remains tense, but there's a shift in the air. The racist lawyer's frustration is palpable, but his words no longer carry the weight they once did. The confidence he had earlier is gone, replaced by a faint edge of panic. The defense attorney leans back, his posture relaxed, knowing the tide has turned in his favor. The defendant, who had been sitting with his hands clenched tightly, begins to relax. His breathing slows, and a small spark of hope flickers in his eyes. The words of the witness echo in his mind, a powerful reminder that his worth isn't tied to his accent. He is a person of value, no matter how the lawyer tries to undermine him. The defense attorney rises from his seat, his voice calm but firm as he addresses the court. "Your Honor, we've seen the true nature of the opposing counsel's tactics today. This trial is about facts, about justice. Yet what we've witnessed here is an attempt to discredit my client based solely on his background. This is not a reflection of the case at all." The judge nods, her expression serious as she looks toward the defense lawyer. "I agree, counsel. I believe the court has seen enough of the character of the witness and the implications of what's been said." The racist lawyer clenches his jaw but says nothing. The weight of the silence is deafening. He knows he has no comeback to the statements that have been made. His earlier attempts to belittle the defendant now seem petty and insignificant. The defendant's lawyer continues, now more forceful. "We must not allow personal biases, based on something as trivial as an accent, to cloud our judgment. My client is a man of integrity, and his worth is not determined by how he speaks. The evidence in this case should stand on its own merit." The words strike with precision. The courtroom feels like it's shifted its stance. No one looks at the defendant with judgment now. Instead, there's a growing respect for him, for his composure in the face of such mockery. The defendant's shoulders relax, the weight he's carried throughout the trial starting to lift. For the first time in this trial, he feels a sense of hope. The judge's voice cuts through the silence. "The court will take a brief recess. We'll resume shortly." The room stirs, and the racist lawyer's face tightens with frustration. The defense attorney, however, looks at his client, offering him a silent nod of reassurance. The tide has turned.